This is Burn This Book, a podcast where we, Nicole and Eden, read a banned or challenged book twice a month and discuss its meaning, impact, and censorship to make it more accessible for all readers. This week's book is the graphic novel Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi, which was published in 2003.
This is a book about Marjane Satrapi's life growing up during the Islamic Revolution. It takes place from the 1970s until about 1999. And she lives in Iran and then ends up in exile and returns to Iran. And so you kind of follow the different cultural shifts and political shifts through her eyes. First responders, first impressions. Eden, what were your first thoughts?
Tell me your journey. I loved it. I thought I had read the second book. Wait, have you read the two?
So I read all four.
All four. Well, so all four
all
is
four
actually
is like the French version. I don't know how it was published in America. Just the two?
America is just the two.
Okay. I bought the complete, but I think in my childhood my teens, I'd only read the first one.
I had only read the first one too, and I thought it was just one. So I actually bought the one and then realized, wait a second, there's no way that ends there.
Because where does it end in the first one?
It ends when she arrives in... Oh, no. When she gets sent off to France. And her dad is carrying her mother...
Oh, you mean to Vienna. When she goes to
Vienna.
Austria.
Yes.
Yeah.
My bad. Austria.
You're fine. I'm here. Okay.
You're here.
Yeah.
Man, I was just a lot of... Yeah, my first impressions is that it was very good. I think it was... Sorry. It was rather good. I felt like I was looking at her life through her perspective as a child, not like as an adult looking back as a child. Like I felt like I was in a child's shoes going through this revolution with her, how she's perceiving how everyone's talking about it, as all the adults in her life talking about it, and her just like spewing out the same things that she's hearing in her day-to-day life.
Yeah.
And then as we went into book 2, me as like a parent, I felt very like worried for her throughout the whole second book. Which makes sense because she's off on her own at like, was she 14 or 16?
She was 14 when she moved to Vienna.
She was 14 when she moved. So yeah, so she was like super young. Well, I'm sure 14-year-olds don't think that. But in my eyes, she was super young. She didn't have like the luxuries that we have today of just a FaceTime, texting, whatever.
No.
Essentially, she found it easier to say that she was an orphan at one point. Because like she did not have anyone looking after her. Some of the adults in her life in the second book in Vienna, I'm just like, why? Get your crap together so that this girl can live with you, you know?
Yeah.
Instead of like kicking her out, going to the nunnery.
Yeah.
And then from there getting kicked out of the nunnery because someone didn't like her eating. Well, she said some rude things to her, but it was in... But the nun had originally chewed her out because she didn't want her eating spaghetti in the TV room.
Yeah.
And it's just like such a little thing. It just doesn't... Yeah. I'm just like, okay, like where is everyone's compassion here?
Yeah.
I also learned a lot.
Wait, real quick. Can I make a comment on what you just said? I feel like what you brought up, because this book is really rich in that it gives a good understanding of Iran and what was happening throughout things from her perspective. But it also gives us that understanding of like being a refugee / being in exile, or the experience of being an immigrant alone without family in a different country. And I hadn't thought about this while I was reading it until you brought it up, is like, I feel like it kind of similar to The Hate U Give. I feel like the people that should have protected her kind of adultified her too early on. Like her parents sent her to Vienna because they're like, if she stays here, in Iran, she's going to be killed. Like, she's going to be imprisoned because she is too rebellious, and we don't want to squash that part of her. So we think this is the safest thing. But the adults that were supposed to take care of her, whether it was teachers or guardians, treated her like another adult to just fend for herself at the age of 16.
Yeah, like looking for housing. And like she was homeless for several months in the winter because the landlady just like accused her of stealing and then
stole her stuff.
Out. Along with that, not only adults in this book, but also the kids too. And like she does it herself, as where like someone has more oomph to their story if they've experienced war or something. Like you even saw that as like when she was younger, she wanted to have a family member who was imprisoned or died, and just like, oh yeah, my uncle was imprisoned, and
we're so the bigger cool. Rebels / patriots / like complicated relationship with our country, but like where I think our country does, like people in our country do that with 9/11, but in Colorado we do that with Columbine all the time. I feel like people are like, we were right there. There's like a certain amount of clout that comes from being on the front lines of collective trauma, to be able to say, like, I deserve to have more trauma than the other people.
Yeah. And like interesting that we learned that so young too. Like
yeah. It's so weird. What part of like our ego needs that? It's so weird. I don't know.
And how we feed that too.
Yeah. And it's how it's validated. It's like very much rewarded.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah,
maybe it's just attention seeking.
It might be, yeah.
But our tools are just traumatic, so we just hold on to those.
Good times.
What else did you learn before I cut you off earlier?
Oh, just the whole Iranian Revolution, Islamic Revolution, and just the whole history behind it all, and Iraq and Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
Israel and Palestine was also referenced in here as well. And what I thought was really interesting was at the end of the series, was it Iraq bombed Kuwait?
Yeah.
And then they noticed on the BBC News of just like, oh, the rest of the world is freaking out. That's
now
funny.
They care.
Now they care, and they just like start to laugh in kind of their trauma after being bombed for so many years daily.
Yeah.
They're just like, this doesn't even affect them. Why are they buying out their toilet paper?
Yeah.
And yeah, I thought that was like an interesting perspective as like a Westerner, and also the fact that like Marjane's dad wouldn't believe his own country's news. He would always turn on the BBC to validate what he was hearing.
Yeah.
Just like, to be so fully entrenched in the propaganda, or not entrenched, like encompassed by all the propaganda. And like, I thought her parents were a really good influence in maintaining that rebellious streak, being more thoughtful and mindful of what they are speaking out against and all of that. And knowing that like the one perspective you're being fed isn't the only perspective.
Absolutely. Things that caught me by surprise with this reading, because my first reading, it was the first time I'd ever been exposed to like anything about Iran. I had never I didn't know anything about that country. I just assumed it was similar to Iraq. And then I learned that the histories of both countries are completely different. There's tradition of massive disagreements between the different sects of Islam in both countries, hence a lot of issues. And I just didn't know any of that. And so that first time I feel like I was like washed over with like, oh, this revolution was recent. The Islamic takeover was recent. The theocracy is a recent shift in Iran. And then, but this reading, I was captured by like two things. The first thing was Marjane Satrapi is so honest about all of her mistakes and when she's being pretty selfish, pretty self-absorbed, when she's being kooky, pretty self-absorbed, when she's being kooky, when she's being just outright mean. And I never got the feeling of like, oh, wow, she hates herself, or, oh, she's bragging, or she's trying to teach us a lesson in that. And she was just telling what happened. Like at one point when she returns from Vienna, she's back in Iran. She's dating someone and she's wearing lipstick out in public with her veil. She's covered, and she ends up, in order to escape the guardians of the revolution, aka the religious police force, basically, who's making sure everyone is following the law, the religious laws. And they have like a lot of power. So if you do anything wrong, they can imprison you or do whatever they want to, basically. In order to escape them from recognizing that she was wearing lipstick, she pointed at some random guy and was like, he was saying obscene things to me. And then the guardians went over and arrested that man. And she thought it was kind of funny. And as a reader, I was like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
And she goes home. Her boyfriend thinks it's funny. And then her grandma is like so appalled. They don't speak to each other for a while. And Marjane kind of goes through like she has a lot of realizations, but they're not like life-changing or anything, but they're the realizations where she's like, oh, okay, this is how I should act. I understand my grandmother's perspective. But like, I just really really admired that honesty. I think it's kind of that theme where Mindy Kaling talks about this, how she tried to make characters that were unlikable, but she made mistakes because they became unrelatable. And that's why like the last few seasons of the Mindy Project kind of got kooky. And for women to be unlikable is really hard. And Marjane Satrapi was unlikable sometimes, very likable other times, but the whole time she was relatable. Like, absolutely. And it just felt very real. I was really like, there's so many different pieces to that. And her, she was on such a journey of trying to figure out her identity and how to be true to being Iranian without being nationalistic. So there's just that constant tension of identity and place. And what happens when your identity and your place change so dramatically and kind of reject who you are, even though your roots are still good. Like, it's really, I don't know. And I don't think there's an answer, but I think that's a common story for a lot of people who have escaped corrupt governments.
Yeah, I think so. I also think it's a story of like political activism too. What you were mentioning. I just listened to a George Saunders short story.
Okay, Eden. Wow.
I'm cultured over here.
Weary.
This one was because it was on a podcast called Selected Shorts, I believe.
Okay.
Or was it New Yorker Fiction? It was New Yorker Fiction. So David Sedaris read George Saunders. It's the short story is called Love Letters, and it's a love letter from a grandfather to his grandson. And essentially telling the grandson, hey, we're just tired. And so you might want to blame us for how our country has turned out now. But the thing is, like, we did fight those protests. We did do the things that you're doing now. And like, here we are, we're still here. Kind of a little bit defeatist. But then at the end, the grandpa ends his letter by saying, also, if you need help with anything, like, I'd be happy to fund that. As like a whatever political activism you want to do, like, I will still support you. And I feel like I felt that a lot with Satrapi's parents.
Yeah, I did too. They were beautiful people. Holy cow.
Super, yeah.
Yeah.
And I loved how they just like went out and protested while Marjane was so young. But then once it got really dangerous, then they're like, okay, actually, no, we've got to keep Marjane safe. Like, that's our priority. And like, for me, I think I even come from like a privileged immigrant story as well, where my dad did have like transferable skills
Yeah.
where he was able to pick up where he left off. Whereas, because like in my mind, coming from that perspective of like, well, why do they stay?
Right. I was going to talk about this. Yeah, keep going. Because this is, I think, a really important point that is like, it's not subtly brought in, but it is part of the thread of this whole graphic novel.
Mm-hmm. Because like, yeah, throughout the beginning, it's just like, okay, so leave, just go, like,
yeah,
pick up where you left off. Like, you guys are very educated. You can like go off, but like considering, you know, the color of their skin is one thing. Them picking up, they'd have a harder time picking up in a Western society.
Mm-hmm.
But like they're highly educated, and they did mention this about how like, oh, like what, move out so we can become taxi drivers? Like, what is that our destiny to do that? And then even the people that Marjane stayed with in Vienna, the father was a CEO and the mother was his secretary.
Mm-hmm.
And since they moved there, the father was not able to find any work.
No, and she ended up becoming a hairdresser.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's giving up one thing for a really compromised other thing.
Yeah. It's so complicated, and
it's
think
apples to oranges, I guess.
It is.
Like, yeah.
I think so. I totally think so. And I like that is a common thread throughout it, is like these different relatives of hers who have left and gone to like Germany or the United States. It's not the same. And the propaganda that she experienced and the racism that she experienced being Iranian in Vienna as a teenager was like almost to the point where you walk away from that section of the book being like, she should never have gone. But you know why her parents sent her. But it also kind of gives you an understanding of like why her parents didn't go too. Mm-hmm. And but it also talks to the point that like in order for her to be rebellious, they had to come from privilege. Because they had the kind of money to be able to protect her. And even when she returned from Iran, they were able to bring her back. And she went to art school and did all these things. And every time she would break a small law or something, they'd be imprisoned and they'd have to pay like a full month's allowance to the guardians of the revolution. And so she went to prison like a lot as a student. And to me, that was like, oh, right. Even after the war was over, the Marjane's dad had a ton of work because he was an engineer. So he was like busy all the time rebuilding Tehran. And I hope I'm saying that city's name correctly. And other areas. But like just the fact that she could openly rebel and keep that a part of her personality. And her parents had the money to be able to afford the financial, all the fees that came with it, spoke to it a lot. Because I feel like if her parents weren't wealthy, I can't speak to this, but it feels like a place of privilege also to be able to stay in a country that is that oppressive and still be able to maintain some aspect of your lifestyle. Yeah, because that was what I was most surprised by, was that they kept being wealthy.
Yeah,
to an extent. Being wealthy. Yeah. Even after
and
everything.
They even had like ties to royalty as well.
Yes.
Her grandfathers.
Yeah. So it would have been two governments prior. So in the story, the Ayatollah comes to power. The Shah was before them, and before the Shah and his family and his dad was her family in governance. They were like the prince or what. Yeah. So it was like recent, like a generation back would have remembered her family in power, her mother's family, which is wild also to think about.
Super wild. Yeah. I feel like, yeah, a lot of privilege that they were able to even just maintain that.
I
throughout the
know.
generation.
But you also see that she felt that pressure too. Because throughout the book, she's like, I am not living up to my expectations or my ancestors' expectations or my parents' expectations or, you know, like the expectations of my family who died as martyrs. And that was like a huge source of shame for her. So with that privilege also comes great responsibility, Spider-Man. So
Yes. Yes.
and so you see that, and like there's this funny interview, and I'll link it. It was with Pen America. She was explaining how she ended up writing Persepolis. And she had moved to France, and within 4 years she had tried to be like a fur seller. She tried to be a headhunter. She thought that was like, did you watch this, Eden? She tried to be a headhunter. She thought that you had to like kill people. Like she was gonna like have like a gun and stuff. And she went to the interview with like cargo pants on and being like, hey, when do we get the guns? And they're like, you don't understand this job. Like there were like tons of like little like communication failures. And she failed all of that. And so she was like, fine, I'll just do what I'm doing. And she'd received the book Mouse by Art Spiegelman for a birthday present. And it was when she was reading that she was like, whoa. She'd never read comics before. She wasn't interested in that at all. She read Mouse and she was like, oh, this is a totally different experience. And that's why, like, that was what inspired her to create Persepolis.
Yeah.
Without Art Spiegelman, I don't think Persepolis would have existed.
I don't think so. Yeah.
It was a very tender little story. And then the book, like she wrote it for herself and for like other people, like her friends, and she was planning on like printing off like just a few. And then she was like, maybe some people will feel bad for me and they'll buy a copy because I'm a third worlder. So her quote. So she published some more, like she printed off more, and a publisher got involved, and then it blew up. And then France, they were like, we love this thing, bestseller. And then it transferred over to America, which is very, very rare. She's like one of the few authors who became a bestseller in America after first being published in another language in another country. So like that's a huge feat in and of itself.
And I also think the timing of that too, because it was published in 3, which is post 9/11. And I thought that was, well, one, amazing that this was published in the first place and brought over to America.
Yeah.
But number 2, I thought I feel like it's especially post 9/11, a viewpoint that we rarely see of the Middle East, that liberalism.
Yeah.
Because like it has always been painted to me as like far right, really religious extremism, everyone's oppressed and blah blah blah, you know.
Yes.
But this brought up like just like really complicated. It just further complicates things and like shows how nuanced everything is, and everything isn't black and white. Yeah.
100%. There's also this, I'm going to link it as well, but this like YouTuber who brought up this point, and I really loved it. He brought up the point that we are also, when we look at like that whole story, we have to, there's so much nuance in the experience. And even when we look at like pre the Islamic Revolution in Iran versus the Shah and his like very Western ideals and like bringing in all this capitalism and the wealth disparity, both government structures had good and both had bad. When the Shah was overthrown, people were very optimistic that these more socialist ideas were going to come in. And it definitely made a huge left turn.
Here's a promotion from MSNBC's Velshi's Fan Book Club
podcast.
Fan Books Club podcast
series.
What's causing the rise in book banning? On my podcast, Velshi Banned Book Club, I speak with authors of banned books to try and find out.
I think what they're really objecting to is that a young person has perceived the hypocrisy and corruption of the generation that has created their world.
This book saved me in a lot of ways, and then I published it hoping to help people find a blueprint to heal.
Season 2 of Velshi Banned Book Club. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
One of my favorite parts of the book was when she's in art school in
Love
Iran.
that part.
And they can't. And she's like trying to draw and they can't do nudes or like any anatomy, but they're drawing people. And the art teachers are all like fairly liberal, but they have these guardians of the revolution in and out of the art school checking on everything. And their model is in like the full veil. So there's no limbs shown. And they're like, this is not going to work. So they got really good at just drawing like
drapes.
Cloth.
That's what they said.
Yeah, drapes. And then they brought in like a male model and he's wearing clothes, but they're trying to draw him. And a guardian of the revolution comes in and is like, you cannot look at him. And Marjane's like, so you want me to look at the wall and draw him? And he's like, yes. And she's like, what? Which is like stuff that I would never think about in a million years. I would have just assumed all the art schools are over. But like, I didn't know.
And the page right after that, I thought was really powerful for me too. Of just like her running to catch her bus.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And the guardians were shouting like, "Hey, lady in the blue coat, don't run! Stop running! Hey, stop running!" And then she realized, oh, they're talking to me. And they're like, "Madam, why were you running?" "I was very late. I was running to catch my bus." "Yes, but when you run, your behind makes movements that are, how do you say, obscene." And then she yells, "Well, then don't look at my ass." And she said, "I yelled so loudly that they didn't even arrest me."
Yeah.
I think this paints such a great picture of how sexism also hurts men.
100%. We can see inklings of all of that. And I think the J.D. Vance rhetoric, honestly, kind of leans into a lot of this stuff, which is pretty scary. And we should take it very seriously because even if someone doesn't mean it, the fact that they're saying it is scary. Because I keep hearing like, well, they don't really mean it. And it's like, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I don't care what the intention is.
The flames.
The impact of it, is like, I feel uncomfortable running in front of someone.
Like I feel like the obviously extreme examples here helps to like highlight the more subtle ones in our community.
Yes.
Okay, if you don't like it, then don't check out the book from the library.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, interesting if you drew a line there.
Yeah. If you don't like it, like,
if you don't feel comfortable with it, then then don't go to that movie or just don't be involved in that. But yeah, okay, one more lesson that I loved. It's on it's in the first book, the first half of the first book. And it is right at the time that the Islamic Revolution has happened and they're freeing all of the socialist, liberal scholars and academics from prison and activists from prison that the Shah had in prison. And there's this kid at Marjane's school, they're in grade school, whose father apparently killed communists. It's super sad, but Marjane gets like really violent. She and her friends are like, we're gonna go beat him up. It's like pretty scary. Her mom finds out and her mom's like, what? That is so wrong. You can't do that. You have to forgive. And she says this line of, it's not his fault that his dad did those things. It's not for you and me to do justice. I'd even say we have to learn to forgive. And so Marjane goes up to the kid and she's like, your father's a murderer, but it's not your fault, so I forgive you. The kid responds, he's not a murderer. He killed communists and communists are evil. And so she comes home and she's like, Mom, I spoke to Raman. He says his father did the right thing in killing communists. And she's like, can't I just beat him up? Basically. And the mom's like, oh, he repeats what they tell him. He will understand later. And the chapter ends with Marjane looking in the mirror and saying, you have to forgive. You have to forgive, and pointing to herself. And I think like there's like that really beautiful piece of like, you have to separate the Iranian from the whatever current Iranian government's happening. We have to separate the American from the American government. And and figure out how to look at the humanity. And I think that's what this book also achieved. Marjane gave us the gift of presenting us with like really tangible humanity within the Islamic revolution of Iran.
Definitely. Yeah, I felt like she painted really real people.
Yeah.
The only person she probably like caricaturized, but also this is me without the full context, is the Shah, probably.
Yeah, well, a lot of the politics were definitely in the background. Like until it impacted her ability to buy jeans, you know, or to wear the kind of makeup she wanted, she didn't really talk about it as much unless it impacted day-to-day things. Like this isn't a book to give you the history lesson. It's just to give you the perspective of a person experiencing history, you know?
Definitely. I also like the part that you posted about on Instagram.
Yeah.
That was actually right after the Guardian stopped her for running.
Yeah.
And let me just read this part out.
Yes, please do.
The regime had understood that one person leaving her house while asking herself, "Are my trousers long enough? Is my veil in place? Can my makeup be seen? Are they going to whip me?" no longer asks herself, "Where is my freedom of thought? Where is my freedom of speech? What's going on in the political prisons? My life, is it livable?"
Yeah. That was so poignant to me. Because it does show, like, if you can distract a person with the little things, like, am I wearing too much makeup? Is there too much hair showing? They won't think about the big things. And I think the war they had with Iraq did that for a lot of the people, where it gave them time to normalize this new government. And then all these little rules also did that to distract them from the fact that their quality of life was gone.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how, if we ponder it, in what ways in our lives do we experience that, or do we do that to other people? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do not know.
I do not know either.
Do you have other thoughts about this book?
We hit all the points that I have in my notes.
Oh, I love that. I think it was banned because there's some anti-American stuff in there. And I think there was some sexual commentary because she does talk about sexual freedom as an Iranian woman and being in Europe, but then going back to Iran. It's very, very confusing. Those are the two things that I would say.
Yeah. And actually, I never caught on that whether or not she had sex until the contraception conversation that she had.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I guess she had sex.
Nothing was explicit to me. But I think that that's probably one of the reasons why.
Yeah. Her roommates were more sexually free.
That's true. That's true.
But
her European ones.
I felt like I feel like she portrayed that really well as someone who did not participate.
Yeah.
Of just like her like sitting on the couch and like lying awake all night and just like, oh my gosh, what is happening?
I hate this so much.
Yeah, my guess is communism.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Smoking, violence, and then I actually wrote down Islam too because I feel like
No, I agree with you. There's a lot of anti-Islam stuff going around.
So yeah, let's look this up. Why was this banned? So the depiction of torture.
Okay.
Graphic language and images.
Wow, that's really fascinating.
Sex, political content, offensive to Iran and Islam. Oh, okay. So this was banned in Lebanon.
Okay. That makes sense. She does say some things about Lebanon later on.
The scenes of torture. I am actually surprised. Chicago Public Schools in 2013 ordered copies of Persepolis to be removed from 7th grade classrooms. After the public school's CEO
I don't love that. That doesn't feel like, do they mean superintendent?
Yeah, do they? They determine that the book contains graphic language and images that are not appropriate for general use.
General use.
Yeah. I'm just like,
What is this language? This is a bizarre, like, press release.
It is. Yeah, coarse language and scenes of torture. Just like, I'm trying to remember the language.
7th grade does feel like a weird age to teach this. I would have thought you would teach this in high school.
I could see this in 7th grade.
I could see the first book in 7th grade.
First book, yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Because I think, like, one of the articles that I read, it was being taught in middle schools.
Yeah, the first book makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, because it does come from, like, a younger perspective.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
And it just says that a study was done showing that Persepolis had greatly impacted the thinking skills of middle school students who were, what's ELA? Who are taught it in their ELA classroom.
English language arts.
Okay. So English class.
Yeah.
I'm bumping into a lot of weird phrasing right now. CEO of the public schools.
General use.
Okay. ELA. Cool.
Yeah, we feel good.
Okay, they voice concerns about the newly introduced Islamic literature available to children. So I think, like, also banned because the author is from the Middle East.
Right, yeah, she's Persian. Therefore...
Whoa, describe Persepolis. Tara Schultz. Describe Persepolis as pornographic and lacking in quality.
Whoa! Who's Tara Schultz?
Let's see. This is on the comic book defense. Comic book legal defense. What does the F stand for? Fund. I think that was a student. Wow. But I'm trying to think, like, pornographic.
I didn't see any of that energy in there.
I mean, contextually, too, there were a lot of veils.
I'm curious if any of our listeners can possibly find where that could be true. Because I might just have missed it. So I am curious.
I think it further shows that a lot of these people did not read it.
No, I think...
Because there is a scene of attempted self-harm.
Yeah.
And, like, no one's mentioned that.
No.
I'm actually surprised no one mentioned communism.
I know, you were really banking on that. I know you wanted that. Yeah, I wanted that for you.
Thank you. Because everyone hates communism.
Right. So Gen Z, they're leaning in.
That's true.
I don't have any other thoughts, comments, or questions. Let's end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. If you have any, now it's my turn. All right. Well, that's our episode. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, please leave a 5-star review. If you don't like it, you don't have to listen.
Whoa! That, my dear friends, is how you also deal with books you don't like.
Yep.
Just practice that skill.
Our next book is I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings by Maya Angelou, and we are excited to discuss that.
Yes, we are.
Thank you.
Please read along. Thank you. Love you.
Bye.
You are a delight. Bye.
Burn This Book is produced by us, Nicola Corin and Eden Wen.
Music by myself, Nicole, and performed by my dad, Frank.